Hi, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, The New Order, The Ruin, as the Reich Commissariat, Ukraine. In the last video, we got our economy into a halfway decent position. Like, we're gonna improve our credit rating soon, even, which is very interesting and fun to see. We're even going to be running a surplus, potentially. Which will be nice. Gotta figure out what little city we're going to learn about next. This one. Reichenaustadt. I was about to get a phone call. That notification scared me. Reichenaustadt, named after its Nazi conqueror, General Walter von Reichenau, was once called Dnipropetrovsk. Along with Kharkiv, it was the centerpiece of a Soviet industrialization program in Ukraine, playing host to ambitious new public works projects, newly built universities and technical colleges, and other programs ingredient in the communist project. That vision died when panzers crashed through the city's suburbs, but devastation restored the city to a largely agrarian state. Famine returned, the conditions imposed on Dnipropetrovsk decimated the population and forced the survivors into lives of meager subservience. Reichenau is dead, but the fear he and the Nazis state first inspired in the people of Ukraine has not diminished. It has been tempered and challenged by the rage of the oppressed, by a grim resolve to fight on for a free Ukraine, but it has not gone. It still exists in the makeup of things and events in Reichenaustadt. In the ideology he has brought into battle and governance. His Severity order still captures the governing philosophy of the RK Ukraine in simple military language. The indifference of numerous apparently anti-Soviet elements, which originates from a wait-and-see attitude, must not give way for a clear decision for active collaboration. If not, no one can complain about being judged and treated as a member of a Soviet system. The fear of the German countermeasures must be stronger than the threats of the wandering Bolshevistic remnants. Alright then. Yeah, let's invest in some development. Where though? Let's work in Kiev. We're already doing quite well there. Are you sure curtains are enough, Alexander? Asked Volodymyr Bahazi as he closed the aforementioned blinds, the gray breast streets outside vanishing behind the cloth. Curtains, Volodymyr. I'd like to think you're not reducing my efforts to curtains. I found the most secluded meeting room in the building and found the rest of the movement back doors to get in, replied Alexander Oldboylian. So I wouldn't just call it curtains. I think we'll be fine. Still doesn't feel all that covert to be doing this in a Reich Commissariat meeting room. In the heart of Brest, no less. Those Germans are too busy with their squabblings and the riots to notice a little meeting like this. You really don't need to be as cautious as you are, old friend. Lobin was interrupted as a small gaggle of resistance leaders filed into the room, followed by several more, until just about every man was there, exchanging greetings from the curt to the friendly. The room was consumed by the dull murmur of conversations. Most esteemed of the guests, earning many handshakes and warm welcomes, was Yuri Horlis. The men settled into their seats around the room. The room was certainly showing its age. From the peeling wallpaper, the coffee stains on every surface. Still, the expression of hope rested on the faces of the gathered, between the occasional glare or cough. "Good evening, gentlemen," said Horlis. In an instant there was silence. "I'd like to thank you all for attending, and our friends Volodymyr and Alexander for prepping this room, because the time has finally come. The time has come for action, for the return of prosperity to Ukraine. With that, he began to spin his yarn to deliver a speech with hope and a plan enclosed. Here's hoping both become a reality. And then we'll get enough to up that to development level 3. Beautiful. The shovel was heavier in Hana's hands than she was used to. She wondered to herself if that meant she was getting older or hungrier. Probably both, she thought. Buying new equipment for the farm was always a pain, stealing her scant savings away from her and sending her on an unwieldy trek home. Her day continued to worsen, not just from the relentless icy rain that turned the dirt roam home to muck, but additionally the flock of people crowding one of the few paved roads in town. As she neared, she heard a sound which made her blood boil. A German marching tune, coupled with the malevolent growl of trucks, the ominous grinding of tank treads, and uneasy scattered applause from the wary crowd. With no way around, she waded through the throng to the curb where she could see the rather pathetically sized parade. 4 or 5 tanks, perhaps 2 platoons of men, a few outdated and rusted old trucks, and a military band that was struggling to breach the noise of vehicles. Around her, the crowd was clapping, some with genuine intensity and others with stilted sincerity. A man behind her nudged her, encouraging her to join in. She shook her head, gesturing to the shovel. Unable to leave, her anger only further simmered. It was nothing but a march of walking memories of waking nightmares. Their pace evoked the first marches into the little town so long ago, the way they let the curtain fall on her home and suffocate it into misery. Their faces reminded her of the way they had spat on her and her people every day of their lives. Such hate and yet such pride. Worst of all, the trucks reminded her of Danilo's worst stories of the camp. Poor some old friends turned collaborator had bailed him out. She thought of his scars like an abused animal. She was glad he was at home, not here. Obscenities tried to climb up her throat, so she bit her tongue. Violence crossed her mind how satisfying it would be to let Nazi teeth fly with her shovel. She couldn't do that. She couldn't make Danilo a widower. She was all he had. Instead, she grinned until the last man passed and walked home muttering, "Scum." Well, we're exploiting everything well. Next, let's humble the self-righteous Prussian. It would seem the haughty posturing of the SS is an issue even all the way out here, among the fields and crops of the Reich's breadbasket. Ollendorf seems to have ideas in his head reaching far beyond his station, convincing himself that he was instrumental in the success of a settlement campaign during the GPO's 3rd phase. Such a thing was only possible due to the providence of our dear Reichskommissar Erich Koch. Not that the effeminates of the SS are ever wise enough to recognize this. It would be very much in the best interest of Ollendorf that his real responsibilities be insisted upon. There is, after all, plenty of honors to be won in the culling of partisans, or at least enough to shut him up that he does not try to steal credit for Koch's triumphs out from under him. Ollendorf has given himself too much credit for what I have achieved. I will put him in his place. Outside of Kharkiv, there was a sorrowful grouping of dilapidated factories, empty, indeed hazardous, and unusable by the German authorities. Most of its workers were dead, killed by the many famines that the city experienced, fled west or into the swamps, or simply went, as most did, into the hollow and emaciated remnants of a city. Anything useful had been pilfered, leaving the rest to rust and crumble, to be viewed only from a distance, and as yet another meaningless ruin amongst what was once a bustling metropolis. Within these snow-covered structures, where was the smell and the empty coldness of a tomb was a sight, lay the last remnants of the Ukrainian Socialist Soviet Republic. Alexander Shumsky's face was only illuminated by a single gas lamp, while his office of iron sheets and curtains remained dark and obscure. Shumsky's eyes slowly moved to the next pile in his paper. He missed music. That would make it better. Enlivening this dungeon and lightening the riverless drudgery, Shumsky picked up yet another paper, a report. Scenes of devastation, charred bodies, crushed skulls, burning homes, and burning churches. A retaliation expedition, the report said. Shumsky had seen it all, and not just in pictures. He hated to admit it, but he thought it all stale now. Women and children, even that note could not break his heart any further. What had the raid that had prompted the massacre accomplished? A few rifles and boxes of bullets, already at the cost of 10 men. Shumsky felt his surroundings grow colder. This couldn't go on. Recruitment was non-existent, and the younger generation cared more for the next handful of bread than freedom. No, Shumsky straightened. The raid may have ended in massacre, but that only proved that if repression continued, death would be their fate. Those men hadn't died in vain. Those bullets would pierce the brains of the murderers of their countrymen. Shumsky was as sure of that as he ever was. For all we have is hope. I was wondering if I was going to get any events from the communist guys, because I think that's the main commie. Let's get working on some development out here. Whenever we get the political power, of course. Oh, I need some water. Need to hydrate. Andrei Richitsky had been anxiously waiting in a safe house near the border with German-occupied Mykolaiv for hours before a frenzied announcement of success from the partisan detachment in the city came over the radio. When the operation had been suggested, at the spur of a moment, most of the Central Committee had been apprehensive about it, except for him, and its successes had seemingly vindicated his view that, for all its material advantages, the German occupation administration was vulnerable. With a new confidence, he turned to his secretary, Vasil Drozdenko. Send the word. Drozdenko quickly went to work, compiling a list of a dizzying array of underground partisan groupings, clandestine exile circles, and secret factory cells that would need to be contacted in order to reconvene the party as a cohesive organization capable of commanding a new revolution. He saw a bit of himself in the younger man. Drozdenko was not particularly sophisticated in his understanding of Marx or Lenin, but he had the devotion, the energy, and the willpower required of the professional revolutionary. Not that Richitsky lacked those qualities. It was old now, but the past 20 years had done nothing to dim his convictions. From his old time in the USDRP, organizing the revolution against the puppet hetmanate in the closing days of the First World War, to forming the UKP out of disgust at Petliura's increasing conservatism, to the lessons Lenin and Shripnik had impressed on him, to his fights with the Russian chauvinists in the Union, Andrei Richitsky had come to view his life as singularly devoted to one task. There could be no decay, no compromise, no corruption of the goals of revolution. He would ensure that, at any cost. Our party, like any other political party, strives after political domination for itself. Let's get that mechanization going. Get farms to mechanize. Arthur Caldwell. A socialist who supports white Australia. You, Herr Ollendorf, think absolutely too much of yourself for your own good. Erich Koch, Reich Commissar of Ukraine, was pointing at Otto Ollendorf, head of the local SS, from a seat position behind his desk. I don't care what role your black shorts or whatever had in the fulfillment of... What was it? Ah yes! Phase 3 of General Plan Ost. I think that your men are best off sitting around and cooling their heads for the next few months, unless they try anything funny. Or forget that whatever successes they think they've had are nothing other than thanks to the Reich Commissariat's work as a bulwark for the Aryan race. Ollendorf was grimacing. Yes, party comrade, of course I agree, but, of course you agree, but nothing. That's a contradiction in terms. Don't think I don't see you trying to divert the conversation or take credit for what was especially my work. Go focus on fighting the partisans. Make yourself useful. What was it that your boss back home said? We only want their fear? I heard a nod from Ollendorf. Well, if you fuckers gave the abandoned partisans reason to fear, maybe we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. Repressing the urge to do something he might soon regret, Ollendorf merely nodded again. As you say, body comrade. At that, Koch gestured to the door dismissively. As I say indeed, get back to work! Fun guy. Must be a blast at parties. What do we got next? Raise resource quotas. Right now, let's crack down on the termites. Despite years of efforts at securing Ukraine, it remains a truth that bandits still infest the forest, swamps, mountains, and yes, cities of the state. Displaced soldiers, rebellious peasants, and abject criminals, and more flee justice and pillage the countryside with impunity. This must stop, and there's one man who can be considered to be responsible. Ollendorf and the SS under his command must be charged with organizing the police operations to fight and suppress these bandits and return order of the countryside. Otherwise, what is their purpose? Deep in forests, between scattered and hidden fortifications, a small fire roared. Around it, Bogdan and his fellow partisans quietly ate their fill. It was a disgusting meal, watery yet overwhelmed by the taste of buckshot, but Bogdan had come to accept such long ago. His commander stood above them, less imposing than usual. He had a look in his eyes, a slight squint. Flickered in Bogdan's view, then faded away just as quickly. As the fire began to fade, the commander called his men's attention. Comrades, I received some unpleasant news. The hideout of our fellow division, a few miles north of here, was uncovered by the fascist government yesterday evening. We received no word since. It is likely the worst has occurred. It wasn't the first time the commander had been forced to give such news. They'd heard the same story far too many times now. A simple fact was emerging, one that Bogdan knew the danger of internalizing fully. They might be dead tomorrow. Realizing, did I ever read these? Oh my god, I never read these. I'm behind on my TNO lore, nerd shit. A silence fell over the soldiers, only broken by their spoons and the occasional crackle of the fire. As the last gasp, the fire illuminated his comrades' faces. Bogdan could see that each was, in their own quiet manner, grappling with the same fears, the same story, and casting it aside. Well, I just feel embarrassed that I forgot about reading all this, but I'll have to do that next time, because I gotta leave things there. Thanks always for watching. Like, say if you liked, dislike if you didn't, leaving comments or feedback down in the comment section below. I read all comments again, appreciate any all feedback you might have for me. Hit the sub button or the notification bell if you really want to keep up to date with all these uploads. Check out my various links down in the description box below. And yeah, that's about it for now, my friends. I thank you all for watching. My name has been Mr. Dogbot333, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.